In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to create a parametric tower using both Grasshopper and Archicad. So we're going to introduce the Archicad 28 Live connection with Grasshopper, and I'm going to show you how the software works, and we'll develop a small project with it. So the first step is to download the Grasshopper-Archicad 28 Live connection. So this can be downloaded here on the Graphisoft website. I downloaded this one. It's the latest for Windows. There's also a PDF that covers all of the getting started and how every component works. These are some of the things we're going to be doing, but this is a great tutorial PDF to look at on their website to explain each component and describe the functionality. So we're going to be introducing how to work in both Archicad and Grasshopper, how to create a series of floor slabs in Grasshopper that get live synchronized into Archicad, and create a curtain wall around it. So we're going to first do some work in Archicad, then in Grasshopper, and talk about the connectivity. So in Archicad, we're first going to go to File, Interoperability, and then Grasshopper connection. So I'm going to go to File. This is after I've installed the plugin, Interoperability, Grasshopper connection. So this floating palette shows up. I'm going to turn on Live Sync. So now it's going to synchronize whatever it sees in Grasshopper with Archicad here. So when I open up Rhino and Grasshopper, I'm now going to have a toolbar at the top. This is the Archicad toolbar, and this will be useful in a second. The first thing we want to do before we start accessing these tools, we want to go to the Archicad tab at the top and click on Archicad connection. So we want to establish a connection. I'm going to hit start. So this will connect this Grasshopper file to the open instance of Archicad that we have up. So if you have multiple Grasshopper files, make sure you're in the correct one here. I'm going to set this to the file that we're currently in. Give this a name. So make sure that that's the correct file. So now this Grasshopper file is being linked. So any geometry that I bring in and model in Grasshopper is now going to show up in my Archicad space. So the first thing we want to do, and whenever I work in Grasshopper, I like to develop pseudocode. So this is our roadmap for what we're going to achieve in Grasshopper. Otherwise, it could be kind of distracting with different components. It's good to set a series of kind of instructions for yourself on how to develop the script. So in our case, our goal is a tower like this. So we want to create a profile curve to represent the floor slab, move it up a series of times, and then use that original curve to extrude the curtain wall facade. So that's our goal. We want this tower to have rounded corners, so we're going to use a fillet command there. So these are the steps. We're going to create a closed polyline. We're going to move it vertically. We're going to fillet the curve. So moving it, we're going to move it up for every floor that we have. And then we're going to convert the curves to a slab. So it's not just going to be a curve, it'll have a slab and thickness and material. And that's an Archicad component. So that's one of the new components that loaded with that new plugin. And then we're going to use the original curve at the base to extrude it to the top of the building, and that will be a Archicad curtain wall component. So those are the steps that we're going to follow. That's the logic here. And I'll show you how to do that in Grasshopper. So the first thing we want to do is create a profile curve in Rhino. So I have some previous tests here. I'm just going to create a polyline. So in Rhino, if I type polyline, and as long as it's flat on the ground and it's closed, it'll work for our purposes. So in Grasshopper, I'm just going to type curve. By double clicking on the canvas, you can pull up this component. I'm going to right click it, set one curve. So we have that first curve. I want to fillet this. I want all of the corners, these sharp corners, to be rounded. So I'm going to type fillet. This is the one I'm going to use. It asks for a curve and it asks for a radius. So I'm going to give it a radius. I'm in feet, so I'm going to give it a radius of 2.5 and a slider that lets me control the size of that. So once I'm happy with that, I'm going to move this up a number of times. And again, I'm following this set of instructions I gave myself. So I'm going to move the curve vertically on the z-axis, however many times I need for the number of floors in the project. So I'm going to move this up maybe 6 times, and I'm going to use the move component. So I double click, type move, click on that. So it asks for the geometry to move, and it asks for a vector. So I'm going to give it the z vector, even though by default it's going to move it on the z. So moving it vertically in the z direction. But right now it's just moving it once, right? It's moving it up 1 foot one time. But I want it to move at, you know, I want it to move up 6 different times so that I have different floors. So to achieve that, I'm going to use the series component. So that could be found under sets, sequence, series. So what this does is it outputs a series of numbers. So that's what we're looking for. It asks for the start number, the step size, and the number of values. So this is going to be our number of floors. I'm going to double click and hit 6. So this will be 6 floors. The step size, this is going to be our floor to floor height. So in this case, I'm just going to say 10 feet. It could be 12. Bigger. First number in the series, I'll leave that at 0, so that works. And then if I mouse over this, this will give me all the numbers it's outputting, and those are the values I'm going to input into this z component. So I'm going to get 6 different numbers, so it's going to move this curve up 6 times. So with that, I can now use one of these unique Archicad components. I'm going to go to the design drop-down and I'll find the slab component. So this is unique to Archicad. It asks for, if I mouse over this, a true false, so that's a Boolean. So if I double click, type Boolean, toggle, this is the one I want to use. It allows me to turn it on and off by double clicking it. So false is off, true is on. It asks for the planar curve to define the edge, so I'm going to plug that in. So now all of these curves are given a thickness based on the properties and all the slab information there. So I can double click slab settings. And so here I can give it more specific slab settings. So it's asking for the composite of the slab. So this is in Archicad, this is the assembly for that floor. So if I have a wood finish, steel frame, wood framing, all of the assembly of that floor can get described here in Archicad. And so if I mouse over this, this is a composite. So in my input, I can pull in the composites that I have in Archicad into this file, and I just need to select it. So if I go to slab, floor, I can find a floor that makes sense. So if I want to use a steel deck 2-inch, concrete 4-inch, so now it's going to pull in whatever composites I had in Archicad and pull it up here, and that's going to be the new thickness of these slabs that are being created. All right, so those are the floor slabs. We can also give this a skin. So I want to give the building a curtain wall on the exterior. So we're going to use, under design, this is where you can create kind of Archicad geometry. So I'm going to use this to create a curtain wall, drop that in. Same thing, it asks for a true false Boolean. Set that to true. When it's true, it'll start talking to Archicad. If it's false, it won't send it to Archicad. And you'll notice now when we go to Archicad, you'll see that that grasshopper geometry is now being pushed to Archicad. So now in here I can select this and I can modify it. But as soon as I change it in Grasshopper, it's going to update back to, you know, its updated version here. So this is geometry that is in Archicad. If I needed to keep this here, I could always copy and paste it, or just kind of close out of Archicad, or close out of Grasshopper. But I'm going to keep it for now. I'm happy with it. I'm going to choose the reference polyline. So just like the floor slabs, the curtain wall also needs a profile on which to create itself. So I'm going to find the reference curve. That's going to be this original fillet curve on the bottom. I don't need all of them, just the bottom. It asks for a domain. So the domain is basically from 0 to the top of my building. So if I mouse over this, I have a series of numbers. I have from 0 to 50. So what I want to do is get the top of that, top height of that, and the bottom, and use those for my domain. So I'm going to use the bounds component. So this gets me the minimum and maximum of a list. So I can plug in that original series of numbers, and if I mouse over this, it's giving me a domain from 0 to 50. So that's exactly what I want. I can also give it a custom domain. So I can just type construct domain, and I can give it a domain from 0 to 50, this way. But it's less efficient and less elegant as a script, because if I were to change the number here, let's say I want 7 floors, this won't update until I, do the math and update this here. So keep it elegant and simple. This is just going to extract whatever the minimum and maximum are of this list. So this is the one I'm going to use for now. Maybe I would use this if I want the parapet condition. If the curtain wall wants to extend above the roof, maybe I could use that. But I'm going to keep this. And then I need a point to tell Archicad what's outside, what's inside. So I'm just going to create a point out here, select that, double click, point, set one point, and then plug that in here. So it's going to think about this and generate this curtain wall. And so you'll notice that it's now generated a curtain wall all the way up this building based on curtain wall settings that are in Archicad. So I never told it to create windows that are this size and the spandrel, but it's pulling the information from Archicad. And you'll see when we go to Archicad, if I click on this curtain wall and hit Control T, all of those curtain wall settings are here, and so we can change the panel size and window size and all of that here, and it'll update in Rhino and Grasshopper. So this is a pretty heavy file. This is a lot of geometry here. So I'm going to actually delete this. I can also just turn this off. Let's set that to false. So now it's not going to calculate it. It's not going to push it over to Archicad. I'll just kind of leave it as is. So there's that. Let's say we want to give this structure a series of columns. We want to create a column grid that runs up this building. There are columns that we can add in the Archicad tab. So click on column, and when we mouse over it, we find that it's looking for another Boolean, true, false. So double click Boolean, and then we can go to anchor point. So it's asking for the point to represent the starting point of that column. So I want to give it a grid of points on this first plane, and I'm also going to need to move those points vertically to the top of this because it's asking for the endpoint of those columns as well. So my next Grasshopper script that I'm going to add to this, I'm going to make sure that I have my original profile curve. I'm going to use a component that lets me generate a grid of points on this first curve. So if I go to the Surface tab, Utility, Divide Surface. So this will divide any surface based on its U and V points. So that's the technique for dividing a surface. If I look underneath, you'll see these points, and I have 10 in each direction. I can change that, double click, hit 12. I can bring down the number of points in any direction. And this is very rough. You know, this would be obviously more in depth, and we could, you know, use other tools to create a more accurate grid for this building, but I'm using this as an example. So from those points, those will be our starting points. So those are our anchor points. And then we also want those points moved all the way up here so that they can be input for the ends of the columns. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to use a move component that we did earlier, but I just want them to move once to the very top. So I'm going to take the points, move them. A move component asks for the geometry. It also asks for a vector. So I'm going to hit vector. I'm just going to use the Z vector. So I'm going to double click, hit Z. And to create this distance, I want to grab the kind of last number of this series. So one way I can do that is to grab the last number of a series, you can use the item index. So I can double click, type item, list item. So this will grab whatever number I want from that list. So if I want the first one, I would give it 0, because Grasshopper starts counting at 0. So if I wanted this curve, I would say 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. Now, if I don't want to have to calculate how many I have and then grab number 6, what I could do is just say, give me 0, which is the first, and then reverse the list. So I'm going to keep this at 0, this item index, so that'll grab the first, and then when I right click this and hit reverse, it'll now give me the last, which is 60, right? Because we're going from 0 to 60. So that's a little trick to get the last item in a list. And so that 60, that's the value I want to give to those points. And now I have the movement I need, so now I have these moved points that are at the very top. And I can plug those in here. So it's going to use whatever column settings I have to generate these columns. So if I mouse over this, column settings is what it's looking for. That's a Archicad specific thing. It's looking for a building material, so am I using concrete, steel? So building material. And then if I double click on this, I can give it, let's say, concrete structural. I need to double click this, set that to true for this to generate. So now we have all of our structural columns, and we're able to open this up in Archicad and see that those columns are here as well. You can always select this facade and delete it if I don't want to see it. So now I have a building with a column grid. I could add beams and trusses to this if necessary, but just a quick tutorial on the Grasshopper-Archicad live connection. Hope this was helpful.